All right. Well, we had three 1Ks this weekend. The largest was the Wisconsin 1K. It had 38 players. The top eight was Blue Grand Inquisitor, Iden Green, two Boba Greens, Sabine Green, two Vader Greens, and a 30-point Han. And the finals was Boba v Boba. Anything surprising here for you guys?
So I did not go to draft yesterday, so I was actually just hanging out, and I've been getting over a pretty nasty cold. So I was looking at some of the content. So had the three 1K things kind of going up. This one seemed to me like, okay, another Boba, sort of not dominated tournament, but it's like, okay, Boba won a tournament. Boba in the finals. Similar. We haven't talked so much on the pod about the British event with eight Bobas in the top eight. But
Yeah.
this was sort of like Boba, like what I mean, like Boba Green. It dodged the Vader and the Iden, which not totally sure what the matchups were in terms of did the Sabine knock out the Iden, so on and so forth. But someone expected these six decks, eight decks sort of make sense, and six different decks.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think we're going to see eight Bobas in top eights
Yeah. That
much
I think
anymore. Like
those are
that never really
outliers. Yeah.
happened in Magic, or even like when you have a defined best deck. Like
never.
that was sort of an
You know,
aberration.
you know what I think the problem is with Boba though, and not necessarily, and like it goes with what you're saying. Yes, I don't think you're going to see eight, but the problem I find with Boba is it suppresses like the random deck. Like this Green Han deck was probably pretty saucy, but like any of those like random brews you're trying to make, it feels like Boba just pushes those back down.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it definitely gatekeeps a lot of the random meta that like could be good, like the Blue Grand Inquisitor. You know.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's not being talked about much, but we have shout out to Justin's video dropping soon. Like Churret, right? Just an example. Churret's a great fringe strategy, but Boba just it can't be Boba, so it's gonna it plays whack-a-mole with some of those decks. I see that.
Oh, it can't be Boba. That's like part of my chapter. This is the best deck for Boba. Stay tuned for the new
Oh,
Well,
video
maybe you have
dropping
the
this
tech
week.
that I don't have. So there you go.
Uh,
Chariot 2.0 video dropping this week. Very excited to share it.
I did order
Good
myself
matchup against Boba.
the cards that I needed to complete a Blue Grand Inquisitor deck, so I'm excited to try that as my like new local deck, kind of moving
Yeah,
off
the
Yeah.
Chile
30
onto the
point
Blue
base is interesting.
Grand Inquisitor. Yeah, I agree. I think I would still go the shield base because it sort of leans
Mhm.
into Inquisitor's ability popping off a little more and being more combo-y and
Mhm.
aggro. But yeah, I mean,
The shield base
got to
seems
credit
really
this
good.
guy for rising to the top. And yeah, this
Yeah.
is a much healthier top eight than the London one. And we were going to talk about the Boba meta thing, but like I actually deleted it from the list because I just didn't think it was even worth talking about because it seemed like such an aberration. And one of the things that we have seen from these streams is that people are still getting acclimated to playing this game
Mhm.
at a high level. So
100%.
and Boba's also really good at doing that because you only have to play pretty good for 3 turns and you can pretty much put yourself in a solidifying
Way
winning
ahead.
position.
And like not for nothing, he comes out on 5, maybe, maybe an earlier turn with ramp, and he's a 4/7. So like there's just an inherent power there that can kind of help you out if everyone's still learning the game. Whereas like, talking about earlier the Iden Boba matchup, you really have to have a game plan and know how to attack Boba as a deck. And if you don't have that game plan, he's gonna roll.
Yeah,
And how many people are playing like ground two drop into Boba and being like, cool, this seems fun. It's like the guy drinking coffee, the dog drinking coffee in the burning
Yeah.
house. And then all of a sudden, Super Laser Tech comes out and it's like Boba's out, Bosca's out, 3-drop Boba's out. You have like, you know, a red 3 out. And it's like, what just happened? Versus, wait a second, if you could actually sort of foresee some of these things happening and see the lines, Boba does diminish a bit when you're like, wait a second, don't just give its don't lay up its amazing turn. It can
Mhm.
still do a lot of those things, but sometimes you have to like really stay disciplined and be like, yeah, I've got this amazing hyperspace foil, Sabine to lay down, but you're like, wait a second, no, I'm gonna play this green A-wing here instead, because I understand how this pattern has evolved.
Yeah, Steve. That's how Steve beat Kyle yesterday in the draft. Really, like game one, he went 3 ships to space on the first 3 turns, and
Yep.
we had a pretty space light draft, so not everyone could do that. But when he had 2 arcs and a patrol craft, like I looked over and I was like, oh well, those things aren't getting ECL steadfasted. That's nice.
No. Once I saw what his deck was doing against Mike, it completely played around it.
There you go.
Deploy
That's
your
what you're gonna
leader,
see,
get
and that's
overrun.
great to see that skill does, like, we talk about deck lists a lot in games, and you say like, oh, this deck versus this deck, but it's great to see that, like, the pilot is what matters. That's what makes a game really great long term.
Right.
Not just lists bashing against each other.
Right. I agree. That's why like my need to like see lists is much diminished. I like to get an overall
Yep.
idea what a deck is trying to do, but then like we got to figure out how to pilot it. There are plenty of decks that I've thought were bad in many games until I seen it unlock for me from somebody. So.
Mhm.
All
100%.
right. Shout out to Loopy for covering this one and Wisco, Loopy from Late Night Stream, and also Inception for sending all this information earlier in the night. Many bots died to bring us that information.
Nice.
Many bots. It's crazy.
So we got the other event, 32 players. This one was capped at 32. I do think that if it wasn't capped, this probably would have been like closer to a 50, 60 person event. So to see it capped at 32 was kind of a bummer. You see the top 8 there on the left, and this is different than the last format where like we actually have the top 8 matches. So Green Iden, Han, Green, Red Tarkin, Sabine ECL, Krennic ECL, Vader Green, Boba ECL, Palp Red. 8 different decks, which is always cool. So
Yeah, that's cool.
Good sign of a healthy meta. And then Sabine and Palp faced in the finals after defeating Krennic and Iden and Krennic respectively. And Sabine ECL takes it over Palp I'm not sure who the winner Sabine player was, but I know the Palp player was Scott from the Golden Dice podcast, who hosted the event and streamed the event along with the Saga podcast. So shout out to GDP and Saga for streaming that. I'm sure the VODs are on YouTube and you can check those out. Maybe I'll try and find them and add them to the show notes too.
And our Discord has a robust chat of talking about this event because we were watching it live. And there were some wild things happening in this top 8. The Han list was Super Laser Tech for 5.
All right, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna talk
we're
about
getting to that later.
Let's
I
talk about
apologize
let's talk about the top 2 that are on the screen.
Oh, the top 2, the ones on the screen. I mean, I think Sabine's prime for it, right? Like Sabine's probably been, like, Boba's been dominating, and I think Sabine's probably, I don't say underperformed, but I think it's been a little bit less oppressive than people thought.
Mhm.
It's certainly there, but you see like 30-point bases and you see all this stuff, and you're like, maybe that's like tech for Sabine. It's maybe been over-teched on the onset. But I think Sabine's primed. I don't necessarily, so maybe this is a controversial take. I don't think, I went into it thinking that Boba is like better than Sabine. I'm starting to realize that maybe Sabine is sort of this hidden monster right now that's going to have a run over the next few weeks, and we're going to see a lot more results like this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think that there's some assumptions people make, but if you, and like talking about earlier, like if you know how to navigate the matchup as Sabine, I think that the win percentage, is a lot closer than people think when the Sabine Boba matchup. It's just kind of about getting those reps and understanding the play patterns and how to deal with some of the things Boba does. Like you can't always just attack their base. Sometimes you have to set them up so they can't barrage you or, whatever, or don't set up their ramp. So there's different ways that you can combat the Sabine. So I think Sabine's still a great deck. And then obviously if it sees Palp in the finals, it's pretty happy because Palp is just slow.
Yeah, and this, we were going to talk about the rock, paper, scissors part, but I realized it would just come up naturally when we talked about this. But like, there's definitely a clear rock, paper, scissors situation going on, and like there are variants of it, but like, people responded to the big Boba meta with a lot of control in this top 8, and the Sabine snuck in somehow, like not somehow, but like I don't know the whole standings, but there's one aggro in here, and it faced a Boba,
right,
and like pretty much all other control, and then took it down.
Yeah.
This is really close to the KTOD version that we posted way back when. He's cut Pathfinders and moved U-Wing reinforcement into the main deck. I've been like using the Bright Hopes in the main in that slot, and for the 2 of and the U-Wing reinforcement in the sideboard, but I'm surprised to see the Rebel Pathfinder cut because it's a card that's been pretty good, I think.
Yeah, he's a chewy mage. You're going to be happy to see that cut from list, I'm sure.
Most of the cuts that I've seen people make, and I'm kind of behind, are the Freedom Fighters cut because you have so many 3-drops. And but I guess if you're main decking U-Wing Reinforcement, you are looking to do like a Fighters for Freedom with a couple cards to burn for 3 at some point.
To hit
burn for
it.
2 or
Yeah,
3.
I like keeping it in with the Ewing, but
Yeah.
I see that. Yeah, I mean, I like Pathfinder a lot. Like Saboteur is pretty good, but I also like that they brought in the Ewing, seeing that they'd probably be facing more control. I think Ewing is really good in that. It's got to be in the 60, definitely. It's really good with that deck, giving you that extra gas when you kind of run out, which helps you against the 30-point bases.
It's also sick to pull a pod plus Spec Force Soldier if you can pull that off. It's like
yeah,
really
that's
nice.
that's
Yeah,
a
that'd
dope
be pretty
combo.
sweet. I think there's a low to the ground one maybe that it sort of might need to resurface though with like, Fighters for Freedom. This one has Fighters for Freedom, but like it just has a little bit because I feel like the sort of top end, like if Iden is, or for instance, or like a big Boba is facing Ewing, it's sort of like, okay, we've gotten to our sweet spot. And you obviously want to finish it off, but I don't know. I feel like that those last 2 cards in the bottom right, the Ewing and the grit 6-drop, it's like Boba's and Iden are sort of happy to see those type of cards in a sense because it's like that's the point where they're playing Vaders and stuff like that.
The only issue with that in this game is like it's so easy to dispatch a 2/2, right? Like you play Benthic or something, and like, oh, my Death Trooper not only kills your 2/2, but then it still kills the 3-drop that you played. So like, it's hard. There's just not too many 1-drops.
Yeah,
that
there's not ways
go wide
to
that
get
like
right.
stay alive.
I actually found Ewing to be a little problematic sometimes against Iden. Just like, you've kind of felt like you've dealt with their threats. Your hand is starting to diminish because you've played a bunch of things out. And if they are able to re-up with the Ewing, it can...
Yeah, all of a sudden they got 3 units out, ground space. And
But I agree on the 6-drop.
I've been working with trying to figure out a list with Black One and just
refuel
how that interacts with for a cause.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that's for another day.
You do that in Han and just dump your hand.
Mm-hmm.
How's this? Subscribe to the Patreon, get in the Discord, and you can ask Justin all about it. Booyah.
Yeah, there's some really cool math with Black One.
Yep.
With Han and other things.
Underrated right now.
What do you guys think of this Palp list? Green, red Palp, with some Force users, but not leaning into the whole like Force throw plan and just sort of having a solid curve.
I'll say this: I'm excited to see a Palp up making the top 8. He's probably one of the decks that I've tried to play around with, but it just never seems that great. Like I've gone mono green, tried that, did the green blue. That green blue list you had yesterday, I thought was actually really strong, where you mopped me up.
Yeah, that was Woo's list. I was just testing it out, seeing what I liked and stuff.
Shout out to Woo. He just posted a video on that list that we just talked about. So go to Woo's YouTube channel.
Oh, he did?
Check it out.
About Blue Palp?
He dropped it yesterday. Yeah, it's like unlimited control something.
I think the red's pretty interesting.
My 5K
because it gives you the direct damage or the burn to like removal that like the mono green list that I didn't have. And it gives you a little bit more of an aggro plan if you have to go that route. But I don't know. I don't really love Oswald on this.
Yeah, I like when Palp came out, that was the first thing I did was blue, but I want to explore red more, and seeing this list is giving some ideas. I know Oswald feels kind of not great, but just being an official, with that red removal, if you are ever able to take initiative and drop like a 7 sister untapped is pretty insane.
I like Oswald.
I get the 30-point base, but like one of his strongest things is Palp is the ping Tarkin Town. So
agreed.
That's the only thing where I'm like, maybe you want that, and then working the deck in a certain way, like a top end reinforcement walker to maybe heal to help you out.
I do love the 2 red ships though.
Ruthless Raider Interceptor. Yeah.
Yeah, like
So good.
they're probably my favorite reason out to play red, and why I was playing red in that beta.
Ozil has
Yeah.
a really nice interaction with Interceptor too, where like if they're on a space plan and they attacked with like an A wing and they still have red 3 up, like you can Ozil in your Interceptor and kill the thing that they were gonna untap. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he can kind
That's
of
true.
get you
That's a good
around
point.
sort of like
Yeah.
some of the problematic plays, but like one of the things that we've been doing, and I guess people are checking out Woo's video, they'll see is like in our control decks we've been playing Snowtrooper Lieutenant for a while just to like make it so some of these like low attack guys can trade, which is something that I would probably consider if I'm starting.
I
with
mean, it's so good off Vader.
Right.
Like, yeah.
It's a little
Dude, the
less
problem-
good when like you have to work so hard to get everything dead. And like
Yeah.
when you do it in Iden, she's out with a shield on her to protect her. Like you're not really getting that in Pelt.
Yeah. No, definitely. And the one thing I was gonna say too along those lines, like Iden has this where you deploy her in barrage. Like Palp, sometimes you gotta be mindful of your barrage because you're sacking guys, or against Sabine, you're doing a lot of trading. So just finding a way to keep someone afloat to do a barrage is like I was watching some of those matches, playtest matches, and like there's barrages just sitting in hand that aren't being used. So like
I think
that's
it's
something this deck needs to figure out if it's
It's crazy how many 1-ofs this deck plays.
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah,
of
A
very-
one.
lot of 1-0s.
yeah toolboxy.
Also, like, I don't know how it beats like Boba or Iden like post board. Like you got the 2 Devastators, but like other decks are bringing in so much top end. Like if you look at some of these lists, their sideboards are like Relentless, Devastator, and then go up to like 3 the Reinforcement Walkers and Change of Hearts, and it's like you're gonna be just outclassed. I actually think this deck, lost to Sabine 2-1. It's actually sort of decently suited with a 30-point base and so much removal against the Sabine, because like you get to turn 7, and it's like, okay, cool, like I won.
Yeah.
Whereas like Boba, you can sort of see that Boba turn being pretty rough for this deck. Like Boba's gonna have probably 2 5-cost units and a 3-cost units and sitting on a barrage, and you're like really kind of up against it. Versus like, okay, you're able to trade an early ground unit, shoot an early space unit versus Sabine, and then like figure something out. This, I feel like you're gonna actually get outclassed by the other sort of mid-range to control villain
Yeah, I mean,
decks.
I didn't see the games or anything, but it did 2-0 Boba in the top 8 round. It has a bunch of Sentinel that it can like maybe use to stabilize a little bit.
I think he just wants to ramp
Yeah.
hard, like
Yeah.
mull for ramp. Don't give him any, like you said earlier, Justin. Like don't give him anything. Don't play your nice
Yeah.
hyper foil to get beat up, and you just ramp and then.
Don't play a
yeah,
probe droid to see
yeah.
super laser tech. Oh no.
All right, let's talk about those other lists that are in the top. We're not going to talk about them all, but I wanted to shout out the
Yeah.
Han list that Justin just wanted to talk about. I also wanted to shout out our boy John Lawley for making top 4 with Krennic Green. That's his
John
list
Lawley.
up there too.
Yeah,
So-
I'm glad, Lolly. I'm glad you stuck with Krennic. I know you're having a crisis a little bit, but you stuck with it. You had good results.
John
you
Lawley
danced
had a
with-
deck list crisis. I don't know. He told me he was locked into Iden 3 months before the event. Just kidding, John. We love you.
Didn't he
Yeah, we
break
love
it
you,
on
John.
like week 2?
Yeah, he said he broke it in the original stream. That
He
was
broke
great,
it.
too.
And he playing Gift of Boats Mirror Galadriel.
That's right.
Broke. Okay.
Love it. Yeah, let's talk about this Han list though. It's
So
spicy.
Super Laser Tech, Justin, you said that they were keeping the secret. They didn't want anyone to know about Super Laser
Yeah,
Tech Han.
they posted that this was sort of something they held for the event. Very unique list. I mean, you see, Super Laser Tech is obviously the one that stands out at 5. They were talking about you can resupply on turn 1,
Right.
and then ECL Super Laser Tech on turn 2, and actually play Han on turn 2. Like flip your Han on turn 2 is like their Magical Christmas Land
That's kind of wild.
deck. I mean, obviously you have to have both of those cards and a ground target for the Super Laser Tech to come in and ambush. But it's somewhat unique. I mean, I will say this: the sneak attack is good. This is as close to sort of like, I don't want to say a combo deck, but I do like the sheer bulk. Like if you look at, you've got Steadfast Battalion, Trader, that line continuing to the right. Home One and Reinforcement Walker. It's not just like trying to have 7 resources on the turn 5 turn. This is like pure ramp. I mean, it is pure like unadulterated ramp. There was the game on stream. So this lost to Iden in the first round, but the game was like in like the bottom cards were played in a row for like 6 straight turns, and the Iden player was like playing Avenger and Devastator and Relentless, and it was just this absurd train of like legendaries coming out and 10 resources paid, 8 resources paid, 9 resources paid.
That's wild.
But
So the Han deck just kind of it just drew poorly at the end, like it didn't have the
I don't know if it
gas.
drew
Okay.
poorly. I wasn't locked in exactly to like everything. It seemed like the game had sort of the Iden player had stabilized and had the villain cards are so strong at the end.
Yeah.
But people were commenting like a sneak attack would have been kind of brutal at any moment. There was one spot I think the Iden player was just dead to a sneak attack. So trying to sort of value out some of these cards is interesting. I'm not sold on the Super Laser Tech for 5. Like I think that's a bit much, but he's got some interesting cards. Like he's got the Ambush 4-drop Space Unit and Bright Hope. You imagine that against like Sabine's got to be pretty impressive. He was doing some nifty things. Like I watched he U-winged in a Leia and a Bright Hope and bounced his Leia and then tapped a second thing down, and it was fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like the other things that stick out to me that like I don't 100% love are the Azatuk gunship, although like I appreciate the need for like some ambush space. But maybe not a 3 of. I don't think the Akbar's doing a lot because we don't have a big early game. I think like one of the things you can do with like sneak attack potentially is like sneak attack a home 1, bring in Fleet Lieutenant and immediately attack for 9, heal 2. Like,
yeah, that's pretty cool.
it seems like
seems gross.
and like if you just gear it
And that's
a little bit more towards like a traditional rebel version of this, you can sort of open up a little bit more broken plays. Like also,
No
we've seen.
Falcon's kind of crazy.
I actually like the no Falcon. I think Falcon can be a trap a lot, especially like if you're playing it early and it's tapping you down, and you're not like disciplined and bouncing it and stuff. I've seen that kind of like ruin games. But I definitely like Fleet Lieutenant still in some number, and like I don't know. I
Sentinel ground guy seems good too.
yeah, just a little bit. I mean, I guess if you're
yeah.
leaning all in on ramp, that's great. But there are aggro games where you don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I've actually talked about this in
Yeah.
the public Discord and like gotten a lot of pushback on this. But like Battlefield Marine Echo Based Defender against Sabine goes a long way towards not getting overrun. So
I'll tell you one thing: the U-wings in this are like really awkward. I mean, obviously U-wing to get a Han is like it's U-wing to get a Han, but like, what are your combinations here? Like Akbar and another guy.
Akbar
but
and
you're almost
two guys,
never
but,
going
like,
2 guys. 'Cause
Yeah.
you don't have
Yeah.
that many 2-drops.
it's the traitorous. You do have the gunship, right? So you have the Oztok gunship plus a 3-drop. Excuse me, to like.
That's probably what he's
hit.
doing a lot.
But
Bright Hope
I
and a
agree.
3-drop.
It's probably like a little unfocused for a ramp deck. Like it doesn't know what its best late game play is. Maybe. But like the traitorous just don't fit to me. I guess if you're like double ramping, you can just take their best thing and that's fine. But then maybe you don't want the U-wing. I just think like it's a great idea and could probably be focused. And good job on them for making the top 8.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I said this last week for our own internal thing. The London Boba deck not having No Good to Me Dead in the main is like opened up some of these more fringe strategies. That card's really oppressive against Han. And the
Yeah.
fact that you don't necessarily, you're seeing less of it, that's good news for the Han mages.
Yeah, agreed. And then we
Yeah.
got. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I've been playing a good amount of Green Han in testing. Like I agree with you. Like maybe less Azatok in home 1. Like grabbing an Echo based defender can be huge in the fleet. So like good on him. I actually like Traitorous in Han a little bit, but I've been playing the 30-point base. But yeah, just it's close. I think this is a cool list, and I would like to see what we kind of melded into.
I like the Traitorous in Han. I think like it's possible that someone needs to say like, okay, if we're doing Traitorous, maybe we don't have like the U-wing reinforcement because we don't have a bunch of stuff to pull with it. It's
Got
more that I think Traitorous is a good card in this deck. It's more like like say what you will about the Han 7 deck, but it's got a focus strategy. It wants to do this one
Yeah.
thing, and I just think this thing is being pulled in a couple different directions where I'd like to see the sky's the limit on it. Really.
I agree with that.
Han is like a it's a bad word, but I don't want to say it. But he's trying to attract the off-color stuff. He's selling himself for the off-color between Casino Han and now Super Laser
He's
Tech.
being
He's
called-
the one deck where
he's
you're
being called
seeing
to the
these
dark
like
side.
off-color.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a little nasty in him.
All right, so Lolly's Krennic deck, our boy, still rocking the ATST. Like it's this whole set hasn't been spoiled yet. I love it. And 3 main deck Relentless, just being like, you want to play control against me? I don't think so. Thoughts here? My biggest thought is like I want more reinforcement walkers, but
Yeah, I like, against if you're expecting control, Relentless is your guy.
yeah, 3
There's
is
like
just so
this
many.
weird. Yeah, I agree. I would probably have played.
Just
I
move
don't
one of
think
those
I
to
would
the
have played it
reinforcement
in my-
walker spot.
Yeah, reinforcement walker was so good.
So
I love the
Especially-
this is kind of what I was
Walker.
talking about.
Especially with Piet.
Yeah.
This is kind of what I was
that
talking
little
about with
combo.
the like that Palp deck. Like, I think I'd rather be Krennic in this. Like, if those two decks are mashing up, like there's just you have Avengers in the board. You've got Change of Hearts, Relentless. You've got just so
The
much
Change of
pop.
Hearts fire for 8. I thought that's kind of a cool little tech there because you can afford to pay 8 for that for sure in that matchup. Strike True is kind of interesting with Gideon too. There's some interesting
I don't
choices
mind
there.
the Strike True with
Yeah.
Gideon, but like there's no takedown in here, and I would never play Strike True over takedown, and there's not 3 power.
No
the dark side.
takedown. It's one of wow.
No.
And power the dark side times 2.
Yeah, so those are the biggest things,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
so I think the idea here is like he's playing a Krennic deck with a lot of units, especially, but like he should be 3 Gideon then, so you really lean into the Gideon thing.
Yeah, you got.
But like he wants to remove his things with units, and he wants to attack, and like that's all well and good, but like Strike True relies on you having a unit that can go big, and like anything that these units can take out early, takedown can also take out. So I think finding some way to fit those in and have like play the best cards in your color, like that's why we're blue, right? Is like for takedown basically. So
Takedown and power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't see a world where I'd play Strike True over takedown, but like 3 takedown, 1 vanquish, 1 or 2 Strike True, like that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I do love
Agreed.
Vader to pull Piet and start the shenanigans with ATSDs and walkers and relentlesses and stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But if I had Piet, I'd almost want the Avenger instead. But I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, cool list. Good job by Lolly.
Good job, Lolly.
Yeah.
Not too much to say.
You guys have anything else to add?
No. Let's go.
No.
All right, there was one more 1K, which like literally was not
12-person
posted.
1K?
So they didn't post it. Like people found out on Wednesday or Tuesday this week that there was a Washington 1K, and like a bunch of people were like, "Wow, I wish I knew. Like I have plans, or I can't find a babysitter on 48 hours notice, or things like that."
We
So-
should have flown out, Justin.
So
We should have went.
it was a 12-person event. I didn't get any other information than this. I don't have any lists or anything. I don't know how much we want to say about a 12-person 1K, but it was a Boba mirror in the finals. And looking at those lists,
Boba mirror. Steve, if we
makes
had went to
sense.
London, just imagine, like the world would be a different place right now. Like the
It
meta
would.
would be different.
So many more
Yeah,
people would be
wow,
playing
yeah.
Blue Cheer
Yep.
We'd be Iden would be certainly, I think, probably played more.
All right. So